Okay, so we want to talk about pasture today. This field faces east, and it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. The sun's been up a while, obviously. It's end of April 25th, and I'm behind the hedge, and the wind's coming from the east, and we've had it fairly dry for a while. And you can see here, this pasture is looking pretty good. It's got a lot of clover in it. Fertilizer usage, so this field's not had any for at least 10 years since these seeds or grass seed mixture was put in, and it was a long-term mixture, mostly ryegrass and clover, and there was also chicory in it when it was put in, and that lasted for four maybe 5 years, and then eventually it all disappeared. But we've had, in our grazing fields, we've always had trouble ever since I've taken over with docks, and this field was not the worst, but it was particularly bad, and there's still a few, but there's not many now. And I haven't sprayed it at all, but for the last 10 years that this field has been in pasture, I have not let the docks seed. Maybe I did a couple of times, didn't get on top of it, but as soon as they run that flower head up and they start to flower, I come in and top them off, and sometimes that means doing it 3, 4, 5 times a year. Usually graze it first and then top it off, and I don't think that helps the pasture at all. It obviously didn't help with chicory, but you know, I got to get rid of the docks, so that's what we're doing. Now, we've had a really mild winter, and our clover does not normally look like this in April. Normally by June it's looking like this, but we had a really mild winter and quite a few warm days in December and in January. I don't know if you can't really see how much grass is here, but you can see the difference between there maybe and there. The grass is quite a bit longer here, and this will be because where the sheep have dung. And obviously this grass is looking healthy. It's looking certainly not lacking nitrogen, I would say, and no bag nitrogen's been put on this field, like I said, over 10 years. Obviously you can see where the sheep have dung, and on this particular patch of this field, I don't think any sheep have been here since early December on this bit, and I actually strip grazed or paddock grazed them across this field and up and around that way, and I'm about to bring the ewes and lambs in here again. This has obviously got a bit long, but I didn't eat it before. I could have had it before. If I go out through this gateway over here and into the next field, this is going to be where the sheep were before they were in this field. So November was when they were going to ram, and then they came in again the end of March. So this is the difference. So that field out there we just looked at hadn't been grazed since December. This one was grazed just a week before that, and again end of March. So about 3 weeks the sheep have been out, and there's quite a lot less grass here now, but it's recovered pretty well and it's looking pretty good. And at the moment all the ewes and lamb are over that side, and I'm going to bring them across here. I'm going to move that fence now and put them over onto that piece there. So in a minute I'm going to go and have a look at another field. You can see this one's had exactly the same management for the last 10 years, same mix put in it, but this is where the sheep have been. So we've still got good clover. You can see the grass doesn't look, I mean the sun's behind it so it's going to look a bit lighter probably, but that is what it looks like. And if we go over here to where the sheep have been for the last week, I like to move them around every 2 or 3 days if I can, but we're lambing at the moment, so we haven't got all of the ewes together. There's only about half the ewes here. In another couple of weeks we'll have them all together and they'll all be in one big group, so it'll be about 70, 80 ewes and 120 or 30 lambs together. But there we go. So they've grazed this pretty well, and they've taken off all the docks as well, which I'm quite pleased about, because I don't have to come in and top this now. No sign of any docks running to seed, so that's all good. We haven't Haven't seen any sun for 3 or 4 days, so this is nice to have this morning. But it's still not warm, it's only about 10 degrees. We were getting warmer days than this in December and January, but we do have a couple of nice ones, but could do with some 18s, 19s. We had one of them last week. We could do with a few more of them. Right, so this pasture, this is the field that the pigs are normally in, so you'll recognise it from some pig videos. This one's been in pasture for a bit longer than the one we just looked at, and we don't have problems, or haven't had much problems really, with docks in this field. So this field has been topped, usually only once a year, possibly twice, with a few stinging nettles, but not too bad. I usually top it once a year, and it's a lot thicker sward, a lot more grass in here, not quite so much ryegrass though. Some of the other grasses in the mixture have taken over, and they're a bit denser than the ryegrasses in the bottom, but this field probably grows more grass overall, but not quite the same quality. These are some younger lambs in here, so we sort of run in 3 different stages when we're lambing. So the ewes that are lambing are out in that field there. There's probably only about 20 left to lamb now, and then a couple of days after they lamb, they go into the field through that gate there, and then after a few days, once we think they're all running, they come up into this field, and then they go into the general population, as we call it. So just down the other side of this fence, in the next field where the pigs are right now, this is our worst pasture field at the moment, and we've had terrible trouble with docks in this field. And when I seeded it out, I put in a short-term mix of red clover and chicory and some Italian ryegrass, which only lasts a couple of years. So none of the original grasses are there. This is all just grass that's come afterwards, and it is shocking, and I should have got on and done something with it before, but we didn't really need the grass, and I was just trying to deal with the docks. So you can see the docks are pretty bad in this field. But I haven't let these seed either. I top them. I mean, 10 years ago you couldn't walk across this field anywhere without standing on a dock. So right now there's a lot of docks in here. It's not looking too bad. The pig's going to pull it over, and I'm going to try a couple of things in this field now, and possibly turn it into some sort of orchard as well. Maybe plant a few trees in here. That's the plan for this field. Anyway, go and have a look at this field has had a little bit of fertilizer in the last 10 years as well, occasionally, when I've tried to overseed it with some chicory. I think I made a video a couple of years ago in this field trying to put some chicory and clover into it, and it didn't really work. There's a bit more clover in here now. The chicory came a little bit, but it's not helped it at all. So this field has, and the field above, no fertilizer at all, the one we just looked at. Okay, so this is the field that we lamb sheep in. It's sheltered here from most winds, and they were over here for the first 2 weeks when there was 80 of them in here. As it's gone down in numbers, obviously every day they go down 3 or 4 every day on average. I moved them about a week ago to this side, and this field has been in pasture well, for as long as we've had the farm, which was 1949, so over 70 years ago, before my father was born. He's 70 this year. Possibly it was ploughed during the war, but we don't know. Possibly it wasn't, because this was a dairy farm, so they would have needed grass, and this field, I guess, could have been possibly grass for over 100 years, maybe longer. And it's a very different type of grass. There's no ryegrass here. I don't know if it's natural sown grass or if it was a mix from the 40s or even earlier, but it's really nice. Don't have any docks in this field. The docks apparently came in the silage fields. I don't know when it was, before I was born. They had in a load of chicken manure from the nearby broilers or layers or something, and they spread it over all the silage fields, and they didn't have any docks before that, and then afterwards they did. So that's where the docks came from, and we got terrible trouble in some fields that were the fields that they sowed that in. So never get a dock, only occasionally a rare one in this field, and quite a few other fields as well. So about half our fields we have problems with docks. Anyway, the grass is being grazed here. This is a really thick, dense, deep sward. I mean, you struggle to get into to see the soil here. It's so thick. It's really difficult. You can dig in there and look at the soil. We have had moles in here, which throw it up occasionally. But it's really thick and deep and dense. And the cows used to be the first field they come in, and they used to walk through this field, and it was really thick turf and good for that. Here's one of my ewe lambs that's lamblet yesterday. The first ewe lamb, so she's less than a year old. She would have been born possibly the end of April. I haven't checked what number she is, but end of April into May, and she's the first one. She only got one, but then she's less than a year old herself. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Lovely ewe lamb. This field had a little bit of fertilizer a couple of years ago. We were really short of grass before lambing, and I came in and put a little bit on, but that's probably all it's had in the last sort of 10 or so years. And I did make hay in here about 5 years ago in September or October. It might have even been October actually. It was really late. It wasn't very good hay, but we had a lot of grass in here and I needed some hay, so I just topped it off and did it. But other than that, not much fertilizer been put on this field. But before that, when we had cattle, when we were milking, all the fields would get a lot of fertilizer. I mean a lot. I mean every month we go out and through the summer, from sort of March right through till September, we'd be chucking the stuff on when we were milking cows here. But that was 19 years ago. We got rid of the cattle, and since then we haven't bought any fertilizer. I've still got some in the shed from that time because we had a lot here stored over, but there we go. So I'm gonna have a look at the field that I have put fertilizer on this year. Right, here we go, fertilizer. Not sure how well it shows up on the camera, but can you see that line? That's where I put the spreader going. So here, no fertilizer. Here, fertilizer. And I did put quite a bit on this year actually. I put on 300 weight to the acre, which conversion wise I think is 300 kilos per hectare. And it was 20-10-10 ammonium nitrate, and there's that line. There it is. This field was grazed, well, it's actually the same as the other one that we looked at earlier. So they took them out around about the 1st of April, so just over 3 weeks. All the ewe lambs were in here and grazed this field off, and then I topped it afterwards because I've got some reeds growing in this field, and that's why I put the heavier nitrogen rate on. I don't know where the reeds came from. This was the last field that I seeded, and it was about 10 years ago. I mean, I say about 10 years for the other ones, but it was probably a bit more than that. This is why I'm videoing now, because I can't remember what I did 10 years ago. I struggle to remember what I did 10 days ago. I can't remember if it was 10 years, 12 years, whatever. But I do know that I haven't put fertilizer on, or I have put fertilizer on, but I can't remember how long ago it was or when it was. But this field, most years has had fertilizer, and some years it didn't. And it had the same mix as the other one, but no chicory, interestingly, into this field. I don't know why I decided no chicory on this one. I think the chicory was going crazy at the time in the other ones, and I thought it was looking a bit too much, but that was a mistake probably. But you can see there is some here now, and that's because last year, here's some. Last year when I put the fertilizer on, about March, I included some chicory and some clover into the mix. And so that just came in here and put it in. But you can see how green. Definitely been a response to the fertilizer here, and just up, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but if you look up through there's a lighter patch there, and I went across and back, and I'm pretty sure that's a bit there that I missed, or got a less dose on the ends. When I turn on the ends, obviously the inside's going to get a little bit more than the outside. I'm moving faster, so it's getting a little bit less. But I think because I cut this field for hay, I feel that it doesn't get the nutrition put back on it, and I could come and spread some dung on there from the yard, from the sheds, but we don't get a lot. And I'm feeding hay outside mostly as well, so it's difficult to get the nutrition back on here without buying in dung or slurry, and I risk weeds doing that, and I don't want, you know, after past experience, I don't really want to risk that. So I've still got some fertilizer in the shed. I'd probably be better off selling it at the moment, the price as it is, compared to what I paid for it 18, 19 years ago. But I'll show you the bags. You can't pick it up. The bags are disintegrated, falling apart. But I don't know how well it shows up on the camera, but that is a dead straight line there, exactly where I started the spinner. So there is grass here, but not so much clover in this field, and that's probably due to the nitrogen fertilizer and everything being put on it. So there we go. This field's going to get done for hay again this year. And once I run out of fertilizer, I think I've got 3 or 4 tons left. Don't know what I'm going to do then. I'm not going to buy any more, that's for sure. But I'm just going to have to try and bring some dung and spread some dung on the field that I want to cut for hay. I'm going to have to try and change the system a bit, so I've got more dung. At the moment I'm just using the dung for making compost, which I'm using in the garden and the polytunnel and all that. So I'll have to modify my system a little bit, maybe spread the hay fields around each year, do a different field. But I'll work that one out when I run out of fertilizer. Right, so here it is. I won't tell you where it is because it's worth a fortune. It's like gold, this stuff now. I think it's, what is it, £1,000 a ton. I don't even know why I've got it here. Well, I do, I can't get rid of it. But look at this bag, look, you can see I tried to pick it up and it just disintegrated. You could just put your thumb through it. Now the fertilizer inside, we've had it for 19 years, it's sealed. There's 6 bags here, which are 600 kilos of 20-10-10, and there's 2 bags which are 0-24-24, and that was because I grew 3 acres of lucerne or alfalfa, whatever you want to call it, at one time about 20 years ago, and for silage, and I bought that to put on it, and then it just didn't last the winter. It's too wet here to grow it. I'm pretty sure it's too wet. I put it in our driest field, but it was too wet, and it grew well the first year. The second year it was shocking, and I had that fertilizer to put on it, and I didn't put it on it. I just had to, we needed the grass at the time. We were milking cows. I had to stick something else in there quick. So we still got those 2 bags, and they're hidden at the back, but we're almost to the back now. That is it, that's all we got left. So it does go a bit hard on the bottom, so that's what that bar there is for, to knock it out, and the bucket to dish it out with. But it's been on pallets, so it's been off the ground, so no moisture gets to it. It's in sealed bags, and there it is. So there's 3 ton of 20-10-10, and there's 2 ton of 0-24-24, so I don't know what that's worth. Probably 4,000 quid. Whew. Right, so I'm moving the sheep now, and they were over that side of the field. I picked the fence up and put it up in the next field, but they've come up to here while I was doing that, and I realised that this top half of the field is treated differently to the bottom half, and there's not so much grass here. And this was grazed off pretty tight in the winter, tighter than I wanted to really, but I just had a few sheep, 3 sheep at land in the winter, which was, well, I know there's a story about that, you can find it somewhere if you go back, and that's the woolly ones here that haven't been sheared. They were out with lambs, and so this piece I strip grazed them down across here, and it probably came off a bit beginning of March, and there's a lot less grass here. And when we get down to this bit, this is the line where the fence was, and this is the bit that I said we ate off. We ate this down pretty tight at the end of March, but they were only in here for 2 days, maybe 3, so they ate this down really tight. But there's 3 or 4 times as much grass here as there is up here, and this was been empty a month longer. But because this was continuously grazed in the winter, it hasn't been able to recover like it did down there. But that's just the way it goes. So that's why we put the sheep in the winter from January, or January, February, we feed them hay and sacrifice one field outside if we can, if it's not too wet, because it really hammers the grazing paddocks in the spring if you nail them all winter. And these sheep don't want to leave this grass now, it's fresh grass, so got my work cut out. That I'll get them back. There's a lamb that was born in January, December. There's twins there, and that's the mother. And then these were born about 3 weeks ago. Right, somebody else wants me. There we go. So I've moved them now, and I've just fenced them on a, it's probably just over an acre. 40 ewes and their lambs. And you can see how much grass is here where I drove up with the water butt. Obviously we've got troughs in every field, but because I've got to split them, we don't have water in every paddock that they're going to be in. Right, yeah, so I only actually need to cart water really for a few weeks every year, so it's not a big drama. Usually only sort of the end of April, beginning of May, and then we usually get rain every day or every other day, and the sheep get enough moisture from the grass. But they know where the trough is, even though they haven't been in this field for months. The ewes know that the water's there, and they've run straight down to it. So I did let their trough go empty this morning because I knew I was moving it. So some of them have run down there, and the trough now is up there, but they don't know it's there, although I think maybe some of them have spotted it now. But yeah, it's strange. If the grass is wet, they don't drink any water at all from the trough. But we haven't had any rain for a couple of weeks, and things are starting to dry up. It is still forecast dry for another week as well, but we'll be May by then, so the rains won't be far away. As soon as everybody wants to start making silage, usually around the first week of May, it'll start raining. Now, the lambs are going to take a minute to find their mothers again, so I've just driven them in here. So you can see how much grass there is in here. It's probably too much for sheep really, but the other alternative is to leave it and cut silage. And I could do that, but I don't really need any more silage. And silage is going to be very expensive to make this year with the cost of the plastic wrap and everything, so I'd rather make hay later on in the summer. So I don't think it'll take long to clear this acre, a couple of days maybe, and then I'll give them another acre. And I think it's like a 5 acre field, so I'll split it into 5 and just keep moving them around. And they'll be in here for probably 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, and then on to the next field. Funny thing, right? Grandfather and father spent years ripping out hedges to make the fields bigger, and now I've got to spend hours and hours putting up electric fences to make them smaller again. But there you go, that's progress. Right, I got to sign off now, so I will see you directly.